Monday, August 26th, 2024 at 6 p.m. here in the Village Boardroom. Megan, would you take roll call, please?
Trustee Boyka?
Here.
Trustee Boneski? Trustee Mishler?
Here.
Trustee Briggs?
Here.
Mayor Domratz?
Here. We don't have any specific guests here this evening, but I'd like to start off with land acknowledgement. And Trustee Mishler, would you please
Sure.
give the land acknowledgement?
Before we begin this evening, we would like to recognize the Seneca Nation on whose ancestral territory we are gathering. The present-day village of Fairport sits on traditional Seneca land. The Seneca Nation, with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. With respect, we acknowledge the people of the Seneca Nation on whose land we now live. We honor their past, present, and future contributions to and stewardship of this land.
Thank you. We're going to start off in new business. We can go ahead and cross out item number 1, which is the updated sustainability plan presentation by Sustainability Committee. We're going to postpone that till our next work session meeting, and that way Matt Brown can be here to present the overview. You've all received it electronically. If you want to take the time over the next month to just read through it, you can. It's a very draft document, but it's just meant to give you an idea of some of the work they did. And then when Matt comes in, we'll be able to have a more in-depth discussion. And it's just, it's a plan that's meant to be presented to the board to discuss. None of this is written in stone. This is just talking about some of the work and the ideas that they had when they met as a committee. Since we're not going to go through that, it'll take us to item number 2, which is the crosswalk flags discussion. And Village Manager White, can you start us off with that?
Sure. This was put on at the request of Trustee Mishler. And what these are, they're simply just enhance some crosswalk safety. There are you buy some essentially PVC containers. There's 12 flags in them. And the intent is anybody that's utilizing the crosswalk would grab one of those, kind of hold it in the air, wait for the car to stop, and then proceed across the crosswalk. The cost is de minimis. They're $150, $200 per crosswalk set. They get you both sides. Not a lot of glamour conversations, really good too. It's here for discussion for the board. If it's that you guys come out of this meeting with and would like to purchase or for us to implement, that's the intent of the conversation today.
Emily, would you like to add?
Sure. I was approached by a couple residents who thought that this would add another or an additional layer to safety to particularly difficult crosswalks. Responded to this particular resident saying we would kind of do some research on their effectiveness, and also our neighbor Pittsford utilizing them. They had some good anecdotal some data that they could share. So I did get into a email correspondence with Mayor Plummer. She was super kind, emailed right back. They've had an interesting experience at implementing them. They started off implementing them at one particular difficult crosswalk and found that, like anything, some people use them, some people don't. She said that the people that were using them, it added just an extra layer of comfort. It seemed to be they seem to be being used more by elderly folk who or people with disabilities, younger students who are just a little more intimidated and not quite real comfortable with using crosswalks. She said she was quite honest with they aren't foolproof. Sometimes they do end up on the side of the street. They aren't used by everyone. They're certainly not perfect. by any means, and they certainly are not going to solve all of our safety issues at some of the difficult crossing sections. But they do add another tool, I guess, if you will, in the toolbox. And they have, despite some of the drawbacks to them, they've added more flags to additional crosswalks in their village and have found them to be a nice additional piece to their safety measures that they're using.
Do you know, I don't know this, I mean, I drive through on a regular basis. Do you know, have they explored beacon lights and those kinds of safety devices for crosswalks?
I think that they have. I think they've been deterred only by their cost, because that's the one that, I mean, right? How much are the beacon lights, Brian?
Like 12,000, I think, or more. They're expensive, so I get it. Yeah.
So this certainly does not replace the. I know Heidi and I have had conversations, or maybe it was through email, about the pedestrians' like responsibility to make eye contact and to be a active, engaged part of your safety. I do think that it adds some visibility so the driver can make their own eye contact with you. I talked to the chief. He gave me, like he always does, he gives me the good, bad, and the ugly. He said all the same things that Mayor Plummer said. They're going to end up missing some of them. They're going to, like anything, never perfect. We talked about possible locations that I thought maybe he could add some advice to in terms of like where he thought maybe they would be better located than others. His suggestion was actually, if you were going to try them, if the board found some of appetite to at least give it a try, at the new crosswalk at Nelson and West Church, and rationale behind that was that it's a newer crosswalk. People are still at this point becoming familiar with the crosswalk. It's also as you're really beginning to enter the village limit, so to speak. It would add that additional safety feature to that particular, and we don't have the beacon light there at this point. I know there.
So, I can give you an update on that. Like,
Okay.
The provider that Jason had ordered that with was on back order and back order and back order, and finally last week he pulled the PO from them and placed a new order with a different provider, and the estimated, like, don't write this in stone because the estimated time for arrival is about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So
That's it.
the hope is that within a month that we should have that taken care of, beacon lights,
Okay. That's great.
after waiting for, I don't know,
A long time.
8 months, 6 to 8 months.
So, and I knew Adam had a lot of other suggestions to add safety features to crosswalks with sort of like road paintings and narrowing visually. And there was a lot of discussion. So I thought this would be a great conversation to have at a work session, to see perhaps what you thought about first and foremost the pedestrian the crossing flags, but also maybe other features that we can start adding without too much liability, because I know there would be liability in doing some things to the crosswalks. But
Like you said, they're all tools. I know Adam's got some stuff. He and I talked about a few things, but even with the beacon lights, I mean, they're not foolproof. Half the people use them, maybe the other half don't. You see it a lot.
getting
It's
better.
but it's one of those things you see it all the time. It depends on preference, and again, it's just you utilize what you want. And you take your own risk when you go
Right.
through there, and if you feel like you can do it without it, then they're going to do it, right? So
Right.
I get it.
Did you,
I did a bit of research because I knew this was coming in for discussion this evening. I found information either way, like using quantitative studies of much larger cities. Most of them were either Yeah, it was fine, but it was the same things that we've discussed already. Like, yep, it's kind of effective if people use them. It's also kind of common for them to get stolen. Like, there were a few cities in and around Seattle. They disbanded their program after a few years because they were paying $10,000 a year to replace flags. But admittedly,
Successful.
larger city, many more flags, many more intersections. I'm lukewarm on the idea, but I would be open to just hearing what other people say. I know I've spoken with Adam about some of the different visual narrowing techniques that can be used to physically slow drivers down and therefore increase the visibility of pedestrians and increase the amount of paying attention and decrease in distracted driving that can happen, or that would hopefully happen. Also, I was thinking, even if we like the idea, we want to see if different businesses or groups would want to sponsor an intersection
Yeah, I had actually one of the residents that I had spoken
or
to
a crosswalk.
had an idea of possibly getting so creative involved, and you could really be creative. You could be so creative with the flags. But
Yeah.
I guess the first step is, do we want to go down that path or that crosswalk?
Are you
I'm
set?
good.
Tracy, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I guess I was thinking a specific for trying West Church since it is so new. And I did some research too and read things. It's
Pros and cons, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
they're out there. But I also had a conversation with a resident that had just visited in their daughter and grandkids out in Boston. And it was just, she felt so much safer knowing that she was like empowered. And now, since we are such a walkable community, I see people walk out with their face in their phone, see a crosswalk, and walk right out. I know we're supposed to, but I also thought that if there was a flag pickup, especially for the elderly or, disabled or kids, I mean, kids are what I worry about the most, just walking across or skateboarding across West Church. But if there was a flag, then they'd actually have to stop, look both ways, make that eye contact, hopefully, and just, own their own safety a little bit more in that instance. And it may not be forever, maybe for a while. And I think when Manager White says the cost is so minimal, compared, a couple $100, we can try this, So I think it's a good idea to try at least at West Church, even if the beacons are coming.
Okay. And do you have something you'd like to share?
Well, like we said, we're kicking ideas around, and this has come up a couple of times. And obviously, in my experience, what I've seen and learned from other folks, it's that speed is the biggest thing when we start talking about safety. And the reason for that is when you're going faster, they call your field of vision, it's narrower, right? That's why on highways, you try to keep wide turns straight as much as you can. And as you slow down, your field of vision gets a little bit larger. In other words, you can react to things because you're seeing things. So my hesitation with the flag is you might have it, but if some field of vision is reduced to the point that they don't see you till they hit you, how effective is that, right? Yeah, and you're right. All the research is out there. It's kind of a mixed bag. Older folks and younger folks tend to use them. Seattle and Portland have used them and pulled them back. I think it's something that feels like a solution, but it's a solution to a speed-oriented issue. And that's where the finding ways to reduce speeds comes from. So, for example, you know, I lived in Boston as well. Felt very safe crossing streets there. Didn't have any flags. You know, when I try to think of places that are walkable, I don't think of places with flags. Those aren't the ones that pop out in my mind. That being said, it's $100 and it's $100. And if the board decides that that's the way we want to go, I'm not going to throw a grenade in anything.
Right, and I by no means am not saying that we don't need to continue to reduce speeds in our village. I'm not saying let's wave a flag and everyone's going to slow down. I mean, we of course need to continue to monitor speeds and enforce traffic laws to increase and improve the safety in our village that way. But in terms of, for me, in terms of the visibility piece with the flag, just seems to add another layer to it. If we continue to reduce speeds, when we're also increasing visibility that way, but another layer of visibility with the flag for especially our, smaller statured kids. And there's a gentleman who has a scooter down on Al.
I'm going to see you Wednesday morning.
Oh, good. I know he has expressed, and that could potentially be another spot. Riding in scooter, he's shorter. Your sight line is sometimes a little bit higher when you're sitting up in especially some of the bigger vehicles. He has expressed trouble crossing the Turk Hill intersection there. Sometimes the timing isn't what he needs it to be. I mean, talking about the vehicle has the upper hand, or if you will, or that's a perfect example of systems that we already have in place that give less power to the pedestrian and more power to the vehicle. Is you're literally given a time you have to cross the street in, like I mean, it's like, okay, all right, it's like I'm moving as fast as I can, but so I don't disagree with you, Adam, that speeds are continue to be a concern and that we need to continue to enforce and do. Even you have some really great tools to suggest to further reduce speeds visually as well. So
Right, because like I said, it's you have a flag, but somebody's not seeing you. Doesn't matter. That's the end.
That's where my concern is that people crossing the street or kids may feel a false sense of security by having a flag, especially at that at West Church Street. One of the things that I think the beacons will be invaluable for is they're so high up that as people are coming over the bridge, they'll be able to see those blinking lights versus if somebody's crossing the street with a flag and they think that flag is going to get somebody's attention. I worry that there may be, in that spot especially, that there may be this false sense of security that it's going to protect me.
yeah, I mean, it's like all things. I think that we need that the tool needs to be taught how we use it. Just like
Sorry,
we need to.
that's the part to me that
yeah.
feels funny though. Like we're being taught.
Well, we have to be
How to
taught to
walk.
cross a street. We have to be taught how to use a crosswalk. It's the same sort of thing.
But I don't think that's our role.
Well,
But if you could
to me, it
provide
just feels kind of silly. Here's how you cross the street. Yeah, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot.
Oh,
It-
Adam,
to
you
me, it
definitely
kinda
taught that somewhere
communicates
growing
that
either
walking
in first grade,
is an
kindergarten,
abnormal
scouts.
Let
thing.
them finish and then
And
come back down to you.
even though we say we're walkable, crossing here is abnormal. That's why we have flags. So,
My concern, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying, if, my concern is the false sense of security as well, like, oh, I have this flag, I can just cross the street and not be aware and consistent or be doing what, I've been taught how to cross a street. step out, make eye contact, be sure the car sees you. It's not Canada. You can cross anywhere and everyone will stop. And we don't have that. And I think New York City has billions of crosswalks. There's no flags. People jaywalk.
I'm coming back on to
Sorry,
you,
Tracy, you were next. My bad.
The other side of what you're saying, a false sense of security, I saw it as a heightened sense of security, which the child would now have to make eye contact versus, it's the same side of the same coin. The flag's not going to be invincible, but it is going to prompt them to stop and look both ways and make eye contact,
I mean,
Is
I
there-
don't see it much different than the beg buttons. I mean, you're literally pressing a button to beg to cross the street and wait for them to stop at the blinking lights. It's a similar thing. I mean, sadly and unfortunately, we do live in a culture where vehicles have the I don't want to say that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
centered.
Vehicle center. Thank you. That's a much better way of saying it. But
We had a discussion about looking at another intersection other than West Church Street. What if we were to try one, and instead of trying it at one of these places, we've got two crossings right here that people cross the street all the time. I hear the same issues from them about people not stopping. What if we tried one set of flags at one of these crosswalks, perhaps the one right by the library, and gave it a try to see how it does, how often the flags disappear. It's in a highly visible area where you're less things are hopefully less likely to disappear when there's a lot of people around them.
and there's no beacon light there.
And there's no beacon light there,
It's a mid-block.
at least for now,
And it's a mid-block.
and it's a mid-block crosswalk. Would you be willing to look at something like that?
I'm not going to throw a grenade in anything if this what
Okay.
if this what we do. So.
Okay.
Like, I don't love this, but I might try this for you.
Brian, would that work at that crosswalk in front of the library? And is this under $500? Okay. Would that satisfy everybody's need to at least give it a try and see how it does?
I think that would be great.
And we can keep an eye on it for the next 3 months, 4 months.
I think that would be
Okay.
Only thing not to
Go
not
ahead.
not saying I
Go
don't want
ahead.
to. What I'm
Throw
saying is
grenade.
no.
Throw
What
grenade.
I'm saying is how do we evaluate if it
it's
works?
effective.
Do we know what the information was before or no?
No,
That's a great point, too. How do we determine its effectiveness? Because we don't have
I think
data.
it's completely anecdotal, just the way Pittsford's is completely anecdotal.
Some people are using it, some people are not. If you don't want to use it, don't. That's what we are plumbers.
You know, let's give it a shot and we can look for resident feedback. Do people actually use it in our viewing of what's going on there? I hesitate to put it someplace too far away from the center of the village, just because like I'm at the corner of Perrin Street and West Church Street. That's where we added those beacon lights first, just to make sure, and then further down, I would not like to see it there, but maybe a solution at some of these crosswalks that don't get beacon lights in the future, that if we find that people feel comfortable with using them, that we see people using them, or if the police notice that people are using them, we can ask them for what are your anecdotal experiences in our village. And at least it gives an opportunity to give it a try without saying, no way, we're not going to even try. I
think it's completely reasonable and there's no, in my opinion, there's no reason for at
flags
least
will
trial.
disappear. How willing are we to get more flags? How much does it cost for more flags?
I mean, it's unrealistic to think that a 12-year-old nice guy, they're going to try it at some point, and it's okay. Has it become a big thing? No,
We're not gonna make them that fancy. They're orange. Fine.
That's part of the trial.
No.
All right. So do we agree that we'll at least give it a try in a very quiet location where we can kind of see what happens with it?
Do we need to do a motion? Is that a motion thing?
No,
Yeah. Just to make sure we're crossing all T's, dotting the I's.
because it's a
Thanks for talking
low
about
enough,
that.
low enough value, and we're all in agreement to at least give it a try.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything further about crosswalk flags? Okay. That is done. Thank you all for your input and feedback. That's greatly appreciated. So that will take us to item number 3, which is a motion by the village board to authorize the 2024 Oktoberfest subject to final approval and authorization by the village manager. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Trustee Mishler.
And a second?
Second, trustee Wyko.
And that opens it up for discussion. We can start it either end. Brian, do you have anything you'd like to start us off with? And we all have a copy of the contract there.
No, I think this is pretty standard as we normally do. I think I was talking with Pam the other day. They may do some events and some other pop-up things on Lippers Lane West, which is great. It's what it's used for. It's what it's supposed to be there for, which I'm totally fine with.
No,
But,
they-
it'd be fairly de minimis in nature if they do, so.
I know she already started planning for the pony rides.
Yep.
They have the course mapped out, and
Yep.
it gets loved.
No, I think it's great. It's a great
Yeah.
event. It's our opening to fall, and I look forward to it.
Did they open on Thursday last year?
I believe they did, and they're doing it again this year too, Thursday, 29th, I believe.
The Music Fest raises money for Golisano, Oktoberfest,
Raises money for the partnership.
partnership. Okay.
That's their fundraiser.
It's their fundraiser, okay.
And also that weekend is Scarecrow Fest
Correct.
Right.
and the Plein Air Art Fest. So that's Saturday. There's a whole lot of good stuff going on. So the porta potties will be delivered the 24th on Tuesday. So this is going to shut down Fairport Junction starting on Tuesday?
Well, Wednesday morning, yeah.
Okay. Tent setup and beer trailer delivery on the 25th. Lot will need to be closed at 2 a.m. on Tuesday, the 24th.
Which is Wednesday, yeah. When the bars close at 2 a.m. because they start setting up on Wednesday for a Thursday event.
Okay. The other question I had about it was, I'm trying to remember if it was this one. Do they need to call for safe dig? Are they attaching posts into the ground?
Scarecrow Fest does the Oktoberfest does put stakes in the ground. Some of the boards have authorized for
And,
years. We do require a stakeout with their 10 permit application.
okay.
We'll
And
make sure we stay on it.
who fixes those holes that are put in? Our DPW?
And there's a cost to doing that. Should be adjusted, but there is a cost to doing that. We do fill those at the end of the event.
Okay.
We charge the partnership.
Anybody that does the 10 permit that puts stakes in the ground, there's a fee to repair the asphalt, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is their security for the,
Well, we'll work out those details. They have to have security. They will do it
Their
like
own
they normally
security.
do. They'll work with Patriot or someone and come up with a plan because it's secluded just to the
Right.
junction lot for that event. So it's fairly easy to cone it off, to do security, those type of things. It's an easy event for us, for police, for a lot of things. We have a central location. It's all one. You put resources in one spot. It's not too taxing.
Going on here.
Do we know if they're going to be moving towards like a zero waste type of event, like some of the other festivals we host?
I do not. I can find that out for you though.
Thank you.
was it last year? Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Adam, do you have any questions?
I just think all statistical and anecdotal evidence suggests that people enjoy this festival, so I think we should.
All right. It's a good time.
It's so fun.
I'll wind up at you.
Oh my
I'm going to Tracy. Tracy, would you like to ask any questions or make any comments?
I know for the other two festivals, we had the Verizon boosters come in for communication and cell phone. It helps. It certainly doesn't, fix anything. Will we be bringing in boosters for that weekend?
Generally, that's up to Verizon to do that based on the amount of people and so forth. I think for an event like this, they may not do it. We can bring that up with them and ask to let them know that we have this event coming up and this is the anticipated, I guess, massing. Is it worthy of bringing in the cell tower on wheels, the cow?
Aren't they doing work so we won't need to do boosters?
Yes, Verizon's looking at placing a permanent small cell tower on the Fairport Electric property, and looking at that and setting that in a fall setting. But to date, we haven't discussed contract, lease arrangements, finances, or anything else like that. I'd asked for that prior to them doing all this work, and they're reluctant to discuss that early. So that's really on them.
So was it planned for this fall? Happen?
Verizon is planning on having a cell tower installed sometime this fall on that
Okay.
Fairport Electric property.
But we don't have any of the details yet.
That's correct.
Oh, so it's still happening.
Good. Yeah.
Maybe.
It's in the works, maybe. Okay.
I know in past years they had, just to add to your zero waste comment, they had waste. What would be called waste? Waste manager, I think they called us.
Oh,
Well-
people trying to get people to put composting, recycling.
Yes, and so
to
I
streamline
did
the
volunteer
trust.
for this
Yeah.
really fun job. And, but the problem was they couldn't get enough volunteers to stand by the bins to.
Right.
And they've been
um,
very open about
I
that.
did-
The moment it gets contaminated a little bit,
Yeah.
it's all rejected.
I was like, yeah. At the Music Fest, they had teenagers wearing T-shirts that said "Sustainability for Scholarships" or something, and it's an organization that it's all volunteer based. It's a separate organization that organizes these kids to volunteer in these particular types of venues. They do like Lilac Festival. They did Music Fest, some of the big, maybe Clothesline. But anyway, kids are volunteering, and at the end, all of the bottles that they divert from, bottles and cans that they divert from the garbage or the waste are actually donated to veteran scholarships. So I don't know if maybe we could use them for this festival too, or I don't know if it's too late, but I know that the volunteer piece is the hard piece to get to make it zero waste.
Yeah, I know Color Fairport Queen always tries to round people up and never quite get enough people.
Yeah.
But they might be.
It
able
is
to
actually
facilitate
sort
that.
of fun. I mean, I know you're standing there diverting waste, but
You know, I love
who's to
com-
say you can't have a beer if you're doing that too?
right.
It's like, I mean, you could multitask.
Right.
Now, Heidi, I do know last year, because I worked the Oktoberfest, and I know the vendor, all of the beer cups and plates and forks, everything was compostable.
I know,
And I
remember
think
that
there's
too.
still confusion as to, it looks like plastic fork, I can't compost it. And that's how stuff gets contaminated really easy. It's like
Right.
an education piece, but I know all of their products absolutely were compostable last year. But even, it's a confusion, like, it's a plastic fork, I can't compost it. Yes, you can,
Yeah.
so our products have gotten ahead of our education on what it looks like.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I have one remaining question. There are events planned for Lethbridge Lane East. Are we going to have the public restrooms closed during this event since they are responsible for providing porta potties?
We'll look at that.
Turn your mic on, please.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's very isolated. You know, the Oktoberfest being that it's self-contained, the restrooms, the facilities, the event itself, the food truck, everything is on site at the Fairport Junction lot. So I mean, I can talk it over with Jason, but I don't know.
Yeah,
if that'd be
I'll just
big
ask
issue to
the
close
two of
them
you to
or not. If they can
consider
keep them
that.
open, that'd be great. I'm not sure what the full lineup is for Lickbridge Lane West and what they're doing. But if there's an opportunity to keep them open, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
And also with Oktoberfest, I know we have a lot of establishments that jump on as well. So that's a very family-oriented venue, but there's lots of Irish people around and lots of other clubs. So it's a full night event all over the village.
Oh, yeah. Seems like all our events they're village-wide, right? It's a small village, so it makes it easy. But yeah, they start one place, but everybody piggybacks on the event for village-wide
As it should.
success.
It's good.
It's
I
fun.
think it's a duality of, well, I would like us to have the restrooms open.
Yeah.
I would also like us to have the restrooms in one piece after this event, because they're not always in one piece when an event is completed.
Correct.
So I'll leave you and Jason to noodle that through and determine what the best course of action is.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one last comment. All of these festivals bring such a vitality to our village. I mean, it's incredible. The amount of work that goes into preparing for these and volunteering for these is really incredible, and it just makes our village extra special. So all these events are really meaningful to the community. I know that for sure.
Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then that will carry unanimously, which will take us to item number 4, which is a motion by the village board to authorize an amended and restated revocable license agreement for use and private encroachment into public property. Can I have a motion for that, please?
So moved, Trustee Briggs.
Second, Trustee Bonaski.
And Brian, do you want to give an overview of the contract that we're talking about?
Sure. So this agreement is, we have an existing revocable license agreement for encroachment on public property that Erie Canal Boat Company uses, the kayak sales and so forth on Lickbridge Lane West near the docks. This amended agreement has language in it that permits and facilitates the use of a Hoyer lift. So a Hoyer lift assists with accessibility when an accessible person is trying to launch on their kayak and so forth, and gives them an opportunity to do that by themselves and so forth. So with this, the Hoyer lift, it has to be mounted on our dock and drilled in, but also it requires some facilitation by someone. As you know, we don't have staff down there all the time to facilitate this, and also per the specifications of this type of apparatus, it requires some inspections and review and checklists and so forth. So this permits Erie Canal Boat Company to be the facilitator of that, and to be able to do that on our property and so forth. So, and it puts that responsibility on the licensee to make sure that everything's up to par and it's being utilized correctly and installed and that type of thing. So fairly straightforward.
Tracy, we can start at your end. Any questions?
Yeah, I did. Is that the only change in this agreement? So I guess I had a couple questions because I'm a
Okay, sure.
curious folk.
Sure.
They doesn't use the Treen Tower Station now, right?
That's correct.
I guess I wanted clarity on like the village-owned docks and facilities. And when it says properly stacked and stored off-premise, that just means you can't store things on the dock.
Correct.
Because it's a little complicated. He leases the dock from us, but he leases land from other people.
Doesn't lease the dock from us. He leases space where he currently stores all his kayaks and boats. It allows him to basically operate a business, utilize public spaces for his commercial enterprise that he's utilizing, because he needs our docks and our facilities in order to operate his business.
Do we own the land that he rents?
No. This allows encroachment onto public property for the sole purpose of him operating his business on it.
I
That's
guess
his
that
point.
was my question.
Yeah.
I can understand the dock and I understand storage. So when it says off premises, I was just like, you can't store things on the dock.
That's correct. And prior to this agreement that you've read, he was operating his business literally on public property. So boats would be stored and stacked, and you couldn't really use it for anything else but what he was doing. So when this contract was revised into its current state, it was made clear that you need to operate your business off of public property. You can't be taking the space away and using it as it's only yours, right? It's a public space. It was purchased with public tax dollars. They should be able to utilize it and come and go without interference from a commercial business, basically controlling the real estate, right? So why that language is in there.
Brian, who owns the actual land where he stores his boats? That strip of grass?
My current knowledge is it's Ricky's, or whoever owns Ricky's.
Okay.
And he has a separate contract with them to
Correct.
use that land. So that's all I was like, off premise, it's like just be on the Ricky's land. It can't be on our land.
Just can't be on ours. Just can't be on public property. Yep.
And it says that, you probably have to put this stuff in there, alteration, refuse removal. But, so if he generates a ton of stuff, like unpacking new kayaks, he's responsible for getting rid of that.
That's correct.
But we empty the trash receptacles and stuff all up and
Yep.
down that land.
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Peter actually is a nice extra set of eyes on that bathroom as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, he
So he
watches it.
says that he uses the proximity strategy when he sees a group over there. He
he
just
watches
goes.
it.
He just goes. He walks over real close and stands.
Oh, he's a greeter, he's a
Yeah,
document.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Now, I was just curious, that under the term, he pays a sum of $400 a month. Is that for just the 6 months that the canal is open? Or is that 12 months a year?
For the time that he utilizes it. I think it says in there May through October, I believe.
Oh, I couldn't find that. I
Yeah.
just thought, yeah.
Yeah, so for the times that he's utilizing it.
Last weekend he was selling T-shirts. Erie Canal Boat Company. That's correct. The correct language, right? He had a tent set up adjacent to the tower. That's fine. Is that fine?
Pardon me?
He had a tent set up adjacent to the tower. Is that acceptable?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess my last question.
We do want to set up the tent, but
On his
on
leased property.
his,
Correct.
so next to perhaps his shed or where the boats are being stored.
Correct.
Okay.
Good to know.
Okay.
Last question is, like in J, now he's allowed to operate the Hoyer and all the things that come with that, the inspections. Can he currently use the one he owns and he wouldn't have to purchase a new one?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
But the one he owns has to be
long as it's-
inspected
As long as it's
and
inspected and it's fine.
and that
yeah,
he has
no
the
problem.
insurance to cover so that there's no liability to the village.
Yep, that's,
I just wouldn't want to put him in a position where now I have to buy a new one.
no, he can use what he has current.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, and all that's covered and it's under the umbrella of his general liability insurance that's required by the contract.
Anything else from that?
Peter does a great job collecting those ducks from the duck race too. He's a pro.
Heidi, I'll start with you.
So the revised language in the contract that allows for public access to utilize that space.
It always did. We've had this contract for roughly 10 years-ish. So it's always allowed for encroachment to utilize that space. This is just a revised contract because the term generally is like April or May, whenever he starts, to the end of October. And so this allows him for this year and moving on for the next 2 years to utilize this space for not only his normal encroachment. And the whole point is to, if you go there and say you wanted to rent a kayak, to go kayak for 2 hours. You'd say, hey, give me a kayak, you'd pay, he would come over, bring your boat over to the launch, you'd get in, he'd push you off, and that's it. When you come back, the intent is you offload, he grabs the kayak, and then it's put on his property, not stored for the next person that's coming around and so forth. Right. We want the amenity, just want it to be controlled and make sure that it still stays open and utilized by the public and that type of thing, and kept neat and tidy.
And I think generally speaking, it is being kept neat and tidy from,
Sometimes.
okay.
Adam, do you have any questions? Or Heidi, I'm sorry, did you have anything?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Adam, did you have any questions?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. You know, I've definitely made use of kayaks. They're a lot of fun. With the Hoyer, how do we make sure? I mean, I guess it's up to him to make sure that it's secure at the end of the day and everything.
That's correct.
Okay. So that somebody doesn't decide that, I know it's 8 p.m., but I'm going to use this now. And
It's, I've talked to Peter about this, because it is such a wonderful amenity. It's, people call and make a reservation. I mean, so it's like at 2:00, and he's the only one who operates it, you know, it's not.
oh yeah, no,
it
I've
doesn't
rented from him. I'm just saying somebody outside of his hours of operation can't decide that they're just going.
Nope, it's in the shed.
So the Hoyer, like,
Yeah, it doesn't stay out.
Okay.
So it
Right,
brings
it's
it
not
out,
out.
puts it into the mounting apparatus, utilizes it for the individual that needs it, and
Okay.
then brings it back in.
there we go. Thanks.
Good question.
Removable. There we go.
Okay. Any further questions? Then, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That will be a unanimous vote for that. And I have a question for everyone who's here. There are some issues for a few individuals with the Monday, September 23rd work session meeting. The question I put in front of the group of you, would anybody be open to Thursday night, September 26th, or October 3rd? I don't know what day of the week that is. I think that might be a Thursday as well. Would that, same time in the boardroom, but we just need to alter that schedule because there's a few people who cannot be here at all.
On which day, Mayor?
The work session meeting on September 23rd, the ask is, can we move it to September 26th, which is Thursday, or October 3rd, which I believe is the following Thursday? That would be the evening that we would plan to do the sustainability overview and whatever else comes up at that point in time.
I'm going to say mine 26 probably works best.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I
had
can't
to,
commit to, I'd have to check.
Okay, can you go back and check and then get something back to Brian within the next day?
Absolutely.
Okay. Emily, how does your calendar look?
My calendar is open on both of those days.
Okay, so let's shoot for the 26th. Tracy, see if the 26th works. If it doesn't work, see if October 3rd will work,
Okay.
that we can have everybody here in attendance. Okay, so upcoming meetings, the village board meeting will be Monday, September 9th, 2024 at 6 p.m. The village board work session will likely not be Monday, September 23rd. Hopefully, it will be Thursday, September 26th, or Thursday, October 3rd, depending on what the answers are that come back from everybody. I need to call for an executive session. So I'll go ahead and make that motion right now. And then, yes, Tracy?
I would also like to address the recent addition of artwork, unless you want to do that first.
I am not going to address that this evening.
Okay, I have a statement I'd like to read.
I'm not going to address that this evening.
I'm an elected official. I'm going to read a statement.
I'm running
into-
this meeting, and I am not going to address it this evening. It's not on the agenda, and we're not
think
going to
you're
address
out
it.
of line. I don't believe that you can quiet an elected official who chooses to make a statement. do we have a lawyer ruling on that? That I can't make a statement?
I need to move forward with this executive session. I'm going to ask that you reserve it, and I'll let you make the statement at the end of the September meeting.
I disagree, but I'll check with counsel on that.
Okay.
Are you able to share the statement with us in an email so we all have it as well?
Sure, I'll share it with the public tomorrow. That was the intent.
Okay. I need to call an executive session for I need a motion to discuss the employment history of a particular individual. Can I have a motion, please?
Heidi?
Give it to Heidi
That was close.
and
Second,
seconded by Emily. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? We will enter executive session, and then upon exiting executive session, we will close out the meeting and will not conduct any further business.